1991, a year etched in history. It marked the end of a global superpower. The Soviet Union, once a formidable force, crumbled. Decades of Cold War tension finally ended. The world watched in disbelief as the communist giant fractured. From the Baltic states to Central Asia, new nations emerged. The collapse was a seismic event. It reshaped global politics. It redefined international relations. The world grappled with the implications. The fall of the Soviet Union was not a sudden event. It was the culmination of deep-rooted issues. Years of economic stagnation, political repression, and ethnic tensions had weakened the Soviet system. The Soviet Union projected an image of strength and stability. Behind the facade, cracks were appearing. The command economy, once touted as superior, was faltering. Centralized planning stifled innovation. Bureaucracy and inefficiency were rampant. The arms race with the West took a heavy toll. The Soviet Union poured vast resources into maintaining its military might. This came at the expense of domestic needs. Living standards lagged behind those in the West. The gap was becoming increasingly evident to ordinary citizens. The Soviet leadership, under Leonid Brezhnev, seemed out of touch. Brezhnev's rule, from 1964 to 1982, was marked by stagnation. Corruption and inefficiency flourished. The Soviet system seemed incapable of reform. Dissent was growing, but it was largely contained. The KGB, with its vast network of informants, kept a close watch on any signs of opposition. Dissidents were silenced, imprisoned, or exiled. The Soviet Union's rigid control masked the growing unrest within. The seeds of discontent were sown, waiting for the right conditions to sprout. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Communist Party. A relatively young leader, Gorbachev represented a break from the old guard. He recognized the need for change. The Soviet Union was in dire straits. Economic stagnation, political ossification, and social apathy threatened its survival. Gorbachev introduced two key reforms, perestroika and glasnost. Perestroika aimed to restructure the Soviet economy. It sought to introduce elements of market mechanisms. Glasnost aimed to increase openness and transparency. It encouraged greater freedom of speech and debate. Gorbachev's reforms, while well-intentioned, had unintended consequences. Perestroika led to economic disruption. The sudden shift to market forces caused confusion and shortages. Glasnost unleashed a torrent of criticism. Years of pent-up frustration poured out. The Soviet people, emboldened by Glasnost, began to demand more freedom. Nationalist sentiments, long suppressed, resurfaced. The Baltic states, Ukraine, and the Caucasus all saw a surge in nationalist movements. Gorbachev's reforms, meant to save the Soviet Union, inadvertently hastened its demise. Section 4. The Iron Curtain Crumbles, Eastern Europe's Flight to Freedom. The winds of change sweeping through the Soviet Union had a profound impact on Eastern Europe. For decades, these countries had been under Soviet domination. The Warsaw Pact, a military alliance led by the Soviet Union, kept them in line. Gorbachev's reforms emboldened reformers in Eastern Europe. In Poland, the Solidarity movement, led by Lech Walesa, gained momentum. In Hungary, the government opened its border with Austria. This breach in the Iron Curtain was a pivotal moment. East Germans, sensing an opportunity, began to flee to the west through Hungary. Protests erupted in East Germany, demanding an end to communist rule. On November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. This iconic event symbolized the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe. One by one, communist regimes crumbled. Romania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia all underwent revolutions. The Soviet Union, weakened by internal problems, did not intervene. The Iron Curtain, which had divided Europe for over 4 decades, was lifted. Section 5. From Stagnation to Collapse. The Soviet Union's Final Days. The collapse of communism in Eastern Europe had a domino effect. Nationalist movements within the Soviet Union gained further momentum. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, declared their independence. In August 1991, a group of hardline communists attempted a coup against Gorbachev. The coup failed, but it further weakened Gorbachev's authority. Boris Yeltsin, the newly elected president of the Russian Republic, emerged as a powerful figure. On December 8, 1991, the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus signed the Belavazia Accords. This agreement declared the Soviet Union dissolved. Gorbachev resigned as Soviet president on December 25, 1991. The Soviet flag was lowered for the last time over the Kremlin. The once mighty Soviet Union ceased to exist. It was replaced by 15 independent states. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a momentous event that reshaped the world. Section 6. A world transformed. The collapse's enduring legacy. The collapse of the Soviet Union had far-reaching consequences. The Cold War ended, removing the threat of nuclear annihilation. The United States emerged as the sole superpower. A new world order marked by both promise and uncertainty began to take shape. The collapse of the Soviet Union also had significant economic consequences. The centrally planned economies of Eastern Europe were integrated into the global market. This transition was often painful, marked by economic hardship and social dislocation. The collapse of the Soviet Union also led to the rise of new challenges. Ethnic conflicts erupted in several former Soviet republics. The rise of nationalism and ethnic tensions posed new threats to international security. The world grappled with how to manage these new challenges. The legacy of the Soviet collapse continues to shape the world today. The events of 1991 serve as a reminder of the fragility of empires and the enduring power of human aspirations for freedom and self-determination.